Your brain is currently running simulations of your own failure, and you are treating them like prophecy. Every time you rehearse a disaster in your head, a conversation going wrong, a plan collapsing, a rejection arriving, your nervous system doesn't treat that as imagination, it treats it as preparation. The brain begins wiring itself around the expectation of defeat. So, what you call being realistic is often just repeated neurological rehearsal of the worst outcome. Today, we are dismantling that loop and replacing it with intentional reality construction. The brain evolved to prioritize survival, not happiness, not success. Survival. When you vividly imagine a negative scenario, the brain processes it in a surprisingly literal way. Your heart rate increases, your stress hormones rise, muscles prepare for defense, the body reacts as if the event is occurring now. In 2026, our environment makes this even worse. Constant notifications, news cycles, social comparison through digital platforms. All of these inputs train the brain to expect disruption. Over time, your mind becomes a disaster simulation engine. The amygdala, the brain's threat detection center, begins prioritizing fear based predictions over rational planning. Your brain believes it is helping you survive, but what it's actually doing is training you to expect failure. Now, here is the hidden cost. Every time you mentally prepare for a catastrophe that never happens, you are spending neurological energy. Your brain burns glucose, your nervous system stays in low grade tension, and most importantly, repetition builds structure. Neuroplasticity follows use. The pathways you repeat become easier to access. So, if your mind constantly rehearses, what if this fails? What if they reject me? What if this goes wrong? You begin carving what we call failure pathways into the brain. Eventually, those thoughts feel automatic, but automatic doesn't mean accurate, it means repeated. At this stage, it's helpful to reframe these thoughts not as truths but as software glitches, old survival code running in a modern environment. So, how do you interrupt the loop? Not by arguing with it. The brain rarely responds well to direct confrontation. Instead, you introduce what I call interrupt and observe. The moment a catastrophic rehearsal appears, pause. Do not suppress it, simply observe it and recognize. This is my brain running a survival simulation. Then use a quick sensory grounding. Feel your breath. Notice the temperature of air. Become aware of your surroundings. This signals safety to the nervous system. The amygdala begins to quiet down. When the threat center relaxes, cognitive bandwidth returns to the frontal cortex, the part of the brain responsible for planning and reasoning. Instead of reacting emotionally, you regain the ability to observe the pattern, and observation alone weakens the loop. Once the catastrophic rehearsal stops dominating your attention, something powerful becomes possible. You can intentionally construct a different simulation. This is where neuroplasticity becomes your ally. Your brain rewires based on repeated internal experience. So, instead of rehearsing disaster, you begin rehearsing intentional outcomes. Not vague positivity, specific scenarios, a successful conversation, a calm response, a completed project. This process is what I call the pre execution protocol. Before an event happens, you mentally run the version of reality you prefer. Your brain begins treating that scenario as familiar territory, and familiarity creates confidence. This is not wishful thinking, it is neurological priming. You are preparing the brain for execution rather than defense. Of course, one mental rehearsal is not enough. The brain stabilizes through repetition, which means conscious construction must become a daily habit. A few simple practices help reinforce the new pathway. First, monitor your mental inputs. What you read, watch, and listen to trains your imagination. Second, maintain short daily rehearsal sessions where you intentionally visualize desired outcomes. And third, be patient with the transition. The brain has been practicing fear based predictions for years now. It may take weeks to fully rewrite the default pathway, but over time, something interesting happens. You notice fewer catastrophic simulation, more calm anticipation, more confidence, and eventually a quiet shift in identity. You stop seeing yourself as someone reacting to mental chaos. You begin experiencing yourself as the architect of your inner environment. And from that inner architecture, external reality begins to reorganize itself. Your brain is always rehearsing something, either disaster or possibility, either fear or design. The question isn't whether your mind is constructing your future, it already is. The real question is, are you directing the rehearsal or letting the old survival code run the simulation? Let that sit.